Kia ora talofa namaste, haere mai, and welcome to the Niche Cache. This is our weekly podcast, a big old Aotearoa sporting chit-chat, a chinwag, a kōrero, a yarn, just a conversation, as others might refer to it. And we are here to go deep into Aotearoa sporting matters. Got a little bit of cricket. I want to put the spotlight on Zak Foulkes as a T20 cricketer for Aotearoa. We also have some football to discuss, not domestic football, because we do our domestic football chat on Thursdays as part of the bonus podcast. So if you want to check in with some of that and just generally support our work, which is always we're always very grateful for the folks funding our mahi with Patreon subscriptions or paid Substack subscriptions, buy me a coffee, thingy majigs. We appreciate everyone helping us out doing the thing that we love to do. And every Thursday we record the bonus podcast, which at the moment has a little bit of cricket, but I think we are going to continue chatting a lot more domestic football on Thursdays with the bonus podcast. So that is available via Patreon, patreon.com/our niche cache. And if you're a member of the Patreon whānau, you get the full newsletter copied into Patreon the morning after our newsletter is published. And what do I mean by the full newsletter? I mean, you get the free section and the paid section copied straight into Patreon. Because on Substack, we do go deep into Aotearoa sporting matters every Monday and Thursday with our newsletter. But that's got a free section, and then paid subscribers can access some more paragraphs, some more words that we type up. What do we type up about? New Zealand sport, obviously. Like we're not mucking around here. We just love Aotearoa sport. So there are some things we offer. Extra yarns in the newsletter, extra podcast every Thursday. But they're just basically the best channels to fund our work and help us do what we love to do. So if you are enjoying all of our content, whether it's the podcast, the website, the deep dives that we have on our website, theniche-cache.com, whatever it is, the little clips on social media, the stat dumps on social media, the news and updates, whatever it is that you appreciate about the Niche Cache and what we do, please consider joining the Patreon whānau, having a paid Substack subscription, or buying us a coffee through buymeacoffee.com/the Niche Cache, because we're just out here doing our best, and we appreciate everyone who is helping us do our best and do what we love to do every damn day. Before we get into some sporting matters, and we'll tee up the mindfulness here. But sorry, I interrupted my own podcast menu breakdown. Got a little bit excited with all the options, all the avenues you can support our work, because yes, we will be talking domestic football on the bonus podcast, but today in this podcast, I suspect we might talk a little bit of a Alyssa Whinham update, because she's dominating football in Sydney. We've got some Auckland FC, Wellington Phoenix news and squad updates. Football Ferns have been playing against Venezuela. All Whites have games coming up, and I think we also have New Zealand under-20s football coming up as well. So lots of Kiwi football stuff to discuss. Then we've got the rugby league section. You all know what we're going to be chatting about there. Warriors versus Rabbitohs. And I think we've got Warriors versus Cronulla Sharks coming up this weekend. That is a Saturday night 7:30 burger. Bombadil. And we will do a bit of basketball. But before we get to the basketball, this is like a collision of my worlds. And there's a little bit of mindfulness that will segue into the mindfulness segment, but I've just been jamming the Nightmares on Wax, 30 Groove Street, featuring Jordan Stevens. Absolute banger, as all Nightmares on Wax tunes are. Kind of fresh, kind of new to the Nightmares on Wax musical library, but they are the bangers of all bangers, not necessarily from Aotearoa, but we respect the bangers from around the world as well. And there was a cricket reference. So when I'm jamming to a banger, which has a little bit of Aotearoa vitamins, has a bit of like hip hop, a little bit of dubs, not dubstep necessarily, but a bit of the dubs plural. I was a bit long, a bit eager on the S at the end there, but it's like I'm jamming along, pumping it really loud in my whip in my car because I'm listening to BFM, the greatest radio station in New Zealand. When they play such bangers, I got to turn it right up and jam out. Nightmares on Wax. He says, you'll leave you bowled over and stumped. I take wickets. And then it's like another double down. It's like, yeah, I take wickets. Sorry for the aggressive there. Yeah, I take wickets. I was like, that's just a cool line. Like, who are you? What do you do? I just take wickets. It's like one of those sporting things that really hits me because the way he says it in the raps, you're like, damn, yeah, that's what I do. I take wickets. Now, there was I'm going to pretend, because he's like, I play cricket. And then I think he says, I play sixes. I'd prefer it if he just said, I blaze sixes, because if you play sixes, there's a little bit of, you're not really into the cricket thing if you're saying I play sixes. So I just pretend like I misheard that one. But then he goes, comes back and I'll leave you bowled over and stumped. I take wickets. That reminded me of another cricket reference that I like to throw out there. Dizzy Rascal, Lean Back remix. I'll hit you for six like cricket. In the obvious British accent. So just some good cricket references that I, especially because that Nightmares on Wax song is 11 days old. So it's a new banger with some hard cricket references. And shout out, I've never seen this before. Excuse the long introduction. There are timestamps in the song video on YouTube. Obviously, you get the timestamps on an album. That's very useful because you can just go through, listen to a whole album, and they have the timestamps there. Never seen the timestamps on a song, just one song. So it's like green car, what am I saying? Where's my encore? Excuse me, theme park, in heaven, cricket.
Just in case you want to just go straight to the cricket bits, I guess.
Which, I mean, I do have a habit of doing.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm trying to rack my brain for like songs I can think of off the top of my head that have deep cricket references, but other than I don't like cricket, I love it. I can't think of another one off the top of my dome. So, but that is a classic, so fair enough. I'm sure there's plenty that I've probably taken for granted through the years, and now I'm going to hear them every single time and be like, "Ha, cricket, yes, that's the one." We, yeah, we might, especially the Dizzy Rascal one, like, might need a little bit more education. Like, there might be early days of watching the cricket based on like the grammar there, the usage of the very specific cricket terminology. But we welcome everyone in.
It was a diss track. And it was a
Fair
diss track
enough,
from a long time ago.
gotta...
So he's like, it's a very aggressive, and then you just, I hit you for six like cricket. So yes, shout out. And I don't like cricket. I love it. Big tune. Probably one of my greatest overseas songs ever. And I mean, the two cricket references I've just dropped from British rappers. Nightmares on Wax, I think he is from Ibiza as well, as all great DJs are. But they do, like, obviously the British accent plays up a little bit, which is relevant because I don't like cricket. I love it, which I don't know if that's the original song. I think there might have been like a remix, but I'm not convinced. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't actually know.
But my point is here, maybe if the cricketing world just actually loved cricket. Because they seem to complain about cricket a lot. And it's like, well, if we love cricket, maybe we should big up ourselves, big up our sport, and celebrate everything about cricket instead of complaining about cricket every day. And I'm going to jump into your mindfulness because this song also had a line where he goes, I used to dream large, now I dream low, now I dream far. And that just like perked up my antenna even more so than the cricket references. Because it's like, yeah, what do we do when we dream? It's all about dreaming high, dreaming for the stars, dreaming large. What, like, how can I manifest my greatest ambitions? Well, you got to dream it. You got to have the vision first for the grandiose achievement. And that's cool, because you don't want any restrictions on your thoughts. You don't want any restrictions on what you think you are capable of or what is possible in this world that we live in. But now this is a heavy, I'm looking at the image here for the song, and it's from Still Smokin' Volume 3, and it's a very green image with Aotearoa vitamins in the background and a Rastafari with a bit of a moldy taiaha maybe in his hand with some Aotearoa vitamin clouds. And if you're involved with the Aotearoa vitamins, then there's like this grounding presence to your thoughts. Obviously, you don't need them, and that sparks up a different idea of just like, I dream low. I'm grounded, so I dream low, but I dream far. There's a difference between dreaming low and far to dreaming high, because it's all about aim for the stars and you'll hit the moon, that type of shit. But that's the way I interpret that, is that's like way too airy-fairy. Then your head's just in the clouds. It's not rooted to the earth. It's not grounded to the earth. But if you dream low, if you dream far, similar end product, but there's a bit of earthiness to it. I'm gibbering on here to start the podcast, but hey, we're out here doing our best.
No, I like that one, because the other thing about dreaming high is that, well, you might not be able to reach it. Or you might be dreaming too high. You don't, like you said, you don't want those restrictions. You want the freedom of, especially in your dreams. You want freedom in your dreams of more than anything. I mean, there's enough restrictions in daily life to not have to put restrictions on in the pure imagination sphere. But we're talking about trying to turn dreams into reality, and sometimes the dreams are, well, that's what you said there, wasn't it? It's like you aim for the moon and you end up in the stars. Well, you don't quite reach the moon. Whereas if you're dreaming low but dreaming far, it might take you longer to get there, but you can get there because you're not reaching above what you're capable of. You're actually just walking in a straight line to get to a destination. So that is a slow and steady way of getting where you want to go, which overlaps a little bit, I think, with what I had prepared myself here, which was a quote from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, which goes, "Your hand can seize today, but not tomorrow. And thoughts of tomorrow, nothing but desire." Which I guess desire, you could probably swap in desire for dreams there if you wanted, and we're talking about what you can reach and what you can achieve. There's some overlap there. The Rubaiyat is all very much about like, party today because today is the guarantee. Tomorrow you don't know what's going to happen. So like, stay in the moment kind of thing. Stay in the moment, but also enjoy the moment, which is always, there's I think sometimes not so much the mindfulness that we throw up, but I think the wider genre, the overall concept of that type of advice often, can seem a little bit like a chore, a little bit like you get bogged down sometimes. So I thought I'm just going to throw out one of them, Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, lines of, well, it's translated poetry, so it doesn't really rhyme, but, a reminder that it's okay to have a bit of fun with it as well. It's dream big, but also dream, where were we going with that? Dream low, but dream far.
But what came to mind with your mindfulness was like, so you can seize today, you can seize the moment, but how about this?
Here we go.
I need my own book here. But like thinking about yesterday, thinking about tomorrow, that's like grabbing water that's running down a stream. So you can grab today, you can seize today, but grabbing yesterday or seizing tomorrow is like grabbing water in a beautiful awa in Aotearoa, because that water just goes straight through, and there's no point even trying. And that's the dilemma many of us on planet Earth face, is trying to seize yesterday, think back to yesterday, trying to seize tomorrow, trying to plan for tomorrow, trying to have visions of the future, to dream large. But that's just trying to grab some water. Where all you can do, or you can seize, or you can control, or you can grab is right now. And right now, we're talking Aotearoa sport. And if we're talking Aotearoa sport, we got to keep it grounded, grassroots around the regions, with the NBL Basketball New Zealand League that no longer includes the Indian Panthers. But it does include the Canterbury Rams. Canterbury Rams are first, as usual. The NBL table's got the last 5 games. Every week I go to the table. Every week the Canterbury Rams have won their last 5 games, which only required 1 win from the last round. They had a pretty epic win over Hawke's Bay Hawks. And I was thinking in that game, there's like, the more I watch a Walter Brown, the more I think he should be, because you've told us many times that he does not have a contract for the Australian NBL, but he's someone who should be playing at that level. So I think he's going to play his way into an Australian NBL contract, especially if the Canterbury Rams stay top of the table and they do win a 3rd consecutive New Zealand NBL championship. So I'm throwing up Walter Brown as a little talking point. Nelson Giants, they're on the rise a little bit. They've won 3 of their last 5 games. Still second to last, which could have been a whole lot better if the Indian Panthers were still around, because then it's your 3rd to last. But now you're second to last because they're no longer in the competition. And I did see a good win for the Auckland Tuatara local derby against the Franklin Bulls. Tommy Vodanovic had a massive 3-pointer to win that game, and that was a highly entertaining game for the 2 local rivals. Start us off with Walter Brown. Do you have any, is there any whispers about any possible Australian NBL opportunities? Because he is too good for just playing at this level.
Yeah, I think so, but I haven't heard any whispers lately. Because he spent the last two years, I think it was, with Tasmania as a development player, but he really didn't play much. I'm guessing here, but I'd say he probably only got like 20 or 30 minutes combined over those seasons. A little bit of garbage time here, a little bit of garbage time there. He wasn't really he certainly wasn't a factor in the rotation there. And then they cut him loose rather than giving him the 3rd year, which was going to be full roster spot. So obviously Tasmania didn't, well, so they didn't rate him because they had him on the roster for 2 years, but they obviously didn't see a spot for him in the rotation in the short term. But perhaps someone else will. He might still be eligible to be a development player. I'm not sure exactly what the rules on that. If you can, I'm pretty sure you can be a DP for different teams. I think it's just an age limit or something like that that caps you out, and I don't think he'd have reached that yet. So maybe the Breakers could have a peek, seeing as they've got a couple other Canterbury players in their squad already. They could only offer him a development player role because they've filled their local spots, but that's a possibility, I think. Otherwise, there are several other teams that still have open spots to go around. I think Cairns have only signed about 3 players at this point. I think they had like a change of ownership, which is why they were slow with that stuff. But one of the players they do have under contract is Sam Waterberg, so there's one Kiwi there, which would be nice if they can figure something out there. A couple other teams might have some spots available too. I noticed, I'm not sure if this is just Perth Wildcats being nice and treating the guys who played for them last season like they're still there, but they've done a lot of mentioning off-season updates, what the players are up to. They keep talking about Ty Webster and Hiram Harris, both of whom are free agents right now. I think Harris is a decent chance to return, especially now that Bryce Cotton's left Perth. That'll shake up how they look, and they'll probably want There might be a bigger role available to Hiram Harris now that wasn't there last year. I struggle to see Ty Webster returning, especially because Ty Webster's team in France is actually doing really well. I think they're in the I think they might have made the semi-finals of the French competition, so he's in a good spot there, and I wouldn't bet on him necessarily playing NBL at all next season. He might just want to hang out in France and live the good life there. But yeah, we'll see. There's Walter Brown is certainly one of the guys that I'm tracking. Like I think we're up to like 18 or 19 players contracted. A couple years ago, I think we hit like 22 or something like that, getting minutes, Kiwi players getting minutes in the Aussie NBL. So there is still room to be pushing for that record. And that was, that record was set at a time when the Breakers weren't signing as many New Zealanders as they could, and now they are. So hopefully that is something that's in contention. And Walter Brown is one of them, but there's several others as well around the New Zealand NBL, or even potentially broader, because we've seen Finn Delaney come back and sign for Melbourne United recently as well. He's the most recent New Zealander to grab a new contract there with an Aussie club. So that is all good stuff to peak for. Canterbury just keep winning, eh? They're actually, because that Nelson team, which has shaken up their imports, and it's taken them a long time to get sort of like a balance of the team that they like, but they seem to have it now because they've won, 3 of their last 4 games. The one game they've been beaten in recently was against the Canterbury Rams, and they were actually winning that for a bit. It was only a 2-point defeat. They were in position to get that, and just Canterbury, and they just know how to find the victories when they need them. So that's what happened there. But Nelson did have a massive win yesterday against Hawke's Bay. So there's like which involved Jackson Ball probably having his worst game of the season, but it also involved Hayden Jones for Nelson potentially having his best game of the season. So there's an interesting one before those two eventually link up at Wisconsin University together. But where are we? What was I going to say? The Rams and the Saints are both on 11 wins. Saints have played 2 extra games, but there's like a 3-game split between the 2 teams on 8 wins. No, 2 games. The 2 extra games played, then the 2 teams on third and fourth equal, which is Taranaki and Manawatu. Manawatu copped it a little bit worse than most when the Indian Panthers got deleted, because Manawatu had already played them twice, and instead of just like giving everyone default wins, it was everyone's wins got wiped off. So it balances out at the end of the season, but they did lose a couple of wins there in the short term, which I think Canterbury hadn't actually played them, so they weren't even affected. They're just still first because they were already far away first without having to worry about losing their Indian Panthers results. And I don't think Nelson had played them because they were the 2 winless teams for quite a long time. So they obviously hadn't played each other at that stage. That's another reason to be impressed by Nelson suddenly turning things around. But we'll see how, if they've left it a little bit too late or not. But as it stands, the Rams and Saints are pretty well clear in first and second. But then third through to ninth, and 4 of those 7 teams will make playoffs. There's only 2 wins between third and ninth. And Nelson are a further 2 wins back and might be on a little bit of a streak themselves. At least they're hoping so. Got to win a couple more before we can give them, sort of legitimate contender status there. But they're not that far off. And having beaten Hawke's Bay, they certainly made a big stride this week. So it might be that every team except the Otago Nuggets right now is plotting an attempt to make the top 6. So we're decently past the a couple of weeks past the halfway stage of the season. It is getting towards the kind of zooming towards the end stuff, and it is a wide open competition as far as those playoff spots go. Although there does seem to be a clear favorite, and there does also seem to be a clear second favorite, but beyond that, anyone's game.
Quickly, where's Tommy Vodanovic? Is he still at Tasmania for the Australian NBL?
No, he's one of the ones that I wonder if he might be able to scoop something else up, although I don't think he really had the biggest impact in his last couple Aussie seasons, and he actually hadn't been playing particularly well for the Tuatara until having a good game this week. He's shooting percentages a little lower than they usually are for him, but if he can finish strong, that might just be enough to put him back in the window there, because he's definitely one of those other players who if you're looking at guys who could get a spot for next season in Australia, he's definitely one of them on that list as well.
Let's swing into the Warriors versus Rabbitohs, and of course, coming up against the Sharks next weekend. I was going to quiz you just quickly, though, about your feelings as a Dragons fan about like the best teams in the NRL. Because the Warriors are third right now, 9-3. They've had 2 losses against the Raiders, who are a spot ahead of them, 10-3. So the Warriors definitely aren't as good as the Raiders. No surprises there. But we haven't had the Warriors versus Bulldogs matchup that I'm most curious in. And I need to check when the Warriors will be playing the Bulldogs, because that is going to be the most informative game so far. And they don't play them till round 23. So we'll have to wait and see about that one. But as a Dragons fan, who did you play this week? You had a win over
Broncos? Or was that last week?
Broncos
Knights.
lost to the Sea Eagles.
It was against the Knights because they were yapping
Yes.
about how Valentine Holmes backed up from Origin, but Kalen Ponga didn't.
And the Knights suck. We've talked about that before. Whether it's the Knights or the Panthers being 14th, like, it's just NRL is such a fascinating competition for starters. Best competition, I'd say, in this part of the world. But there's like the Broncos, said it before, say it again. There's always a drama with the Broncos, even when there isn't a drama. Whether it's the Broncos themselves or the media, they just create a drama. So they're always a drama. Panthers are 14th, but they're still the juggernaut coming for everyone. So we'll see how that goes. And the Knights just straight up suck, but no one seems really keen to say they suck because the coach just complains about everything else except his team being sucky. So that's, I'm not a huge fan of the Knights, and I'm not surprised, but I talked about it all season long. The Knights love New Zealand, so their Kiwi NRL pipeline's pretty good. But the Dragons handled their business against the Knights. But are you, like, obviously the Warriors lost to the Storm as well. Sharks are 5th, so that's another little measuring stick coming up this weekend. But Dragons played the Warriors recently. We've had Dragons playing the Bulldogs, I know, this season. You've probably played the Raiders. Like, how are you feeling just about your fair rankings at the top of the NRL ladder?
Played the Bulldogs in week 1 and they smoked us. The score line doesn't look as bad because I think the Dragons scored the last 2 or 3 tries, but it was a pretty comprehensive defeat. And I thought the Bulldogs were awesome in that game, but that was, week 1. So a fair bit has changed since then. Remember how the Warriors went in round 1 didn't exactly reflect what followed, or that was sort of round -1, I guess. That was over in Vegas. Dragons haven't played the Raiders yet. I think they play them once and it's later in the season, but I have seen obviously the Raiders play the Warriors twice, including the game the other week, which I was at. So I saw that nice up and close and get a better indication, as good an indication as you get on like the physicality of that Raiders team, who are like awesome. They're a fantastic team, especially in a wet weather game like that. And they look pretty good. I think one difference between me speaking from a Dragons perspective and someone speaking from a Warriors perspective is that the Warriors also got thrashed by the Storm, and the Warriors always lose to the Storm. So they'd probably have that a little higher up, whereas the Dragons, they beat the Storm. So I don't have to worry about that, but I do think I think the table probably tells a fairly clear story. I would have the Bulldogs and then the Raiders, but yeah, we'll see, because the Raiders, no, they haven't. They haven't even had a bye yet, so they've got 3 points coming their way. Free as in FREE, 2 free points like coming their way, so they might well be first by the end of Origin period once that sort of wraps up. So they're those 2 teams, I think, are a little bit of a step above. The Warriors might be, from my perspective, pushing towards that. Warriors and the Storm, I would say, and maybe a bit of Cronulla, because that'd be an interesting test on the weekend when the Warriors do play against the Sharks there, just to see how that one matches up. But I would say tier one is Bulldogs Raiders. And that's not very hot takey because that is actually what the table says. So they're the Rams and Saints of the NRL. And the Panthers must be the Nelson Giants.
Sorry, the Penrith Panthers, not the Indian Panthers. Gotcha.
Sorry, the Indian Panthers are the what's the team in Perth? The one that doesn't exist.
Give them a chance, give PNG a chance to.
Well, I didn't say PNG, I don't want to be unfair on that.
Either team. You don't want to put the Indian Panthers curse onto a team just entering their first season of the NRL, because we know how that ends. Yeah, it'd be like if the Bears or the PNG team just like shit the bed mid-season, stopped paying their players, and
would never start paying their players.
Had no financial foundations to stand upon aside from the large government donations they all receive. So, in summary of what you were saying, like the Warriors versus Rabbitohs, Warriors versus Dragons, Warriors versus Cowboys, Warriors versus Dolphins, Broncos, we've seen those games. I have no fear about the Warriors scoring points against those teams. And it was the same against the Rabbitohs. Like every time the Warriors had a bit of momentum, they were able to score a try. And same thing that happened against the Cowboys. We've had games against the Dolphins and Broncos in this last kind of cycle as well. And so but the game against the Raiders, I'm like, what can the Warriors do to score points? Because I don't know if we're going to score points the next time we go down their end of the field, or more accurately, the next time we get a bit of momentum, quick play the balls, meters, how can the Warriors score a try? How confident am I that they will score a try? Against the Rabbitohs, very confident. The Rabbitohs couldn't stop the Warriors. So that's all good. And it's the same vibe for the Cowboys. Like the Cowboys, they can score 30 points, but they're going to concede 40. Dragons are a bit more gritty, but I never felt like they were going to stop the Warriors. So it's not going to be a 30-40, but it's it was a 15-14. It was a 15-14 because the Warriors didn't really play that well. And that's the other theme of the last few weeks. The Warriors haven't played very well, but they keep winning. And this is fantastic. Of course, they lost against the Raiders, but the win against the Rabbitohs was very similar to wins over the Cowboys, Dragons, Broncos, Dolphins, and another team. Can't remember. Maybe the Knights in Christchurch. And I was thinking about the Warriors, they would have won easily if the Rabbitohs didn't have Latrell Mitchell. And they won a close game because the Rabbitohs had Latrell Mitchell. And Latrell Mitchell, that dude's good at rugby league. He's one of those players where you're just like, there's no one else like Latrell Mitchell on the planet. Like someone that big, that strong, that powerful, who can also pass, who can also kick. With exquisite timing, precision, and skill. Same way I don't really think there's anyone like Nelson Asofa-Solomona, who's that big, but is so mobile and so agile that he keeps making tackles around the legs. And so there's this thing okay, well, how much is Latrell Mitchell worth? He's probably worth 12 points because he's going to influence 2 tries and he's going to convert them. So you get 12 points there. And I think there were 3 tries that were directly from Latrell Mitchell. So at some point, it's just okay, there's the Latrell Mitchell tax that you need to pay if you're the Warriors playing against the Rabbitohs in that game. And things got a little bit funkier because there were 2 injuries in that game. One to Mitchell Barnett, one to Rocco Berry. Rocco Berry played 60 minutes at right centre. And the Warriors did all right to shut down some of the Rabbitohs' attacks with Rocco Berry at centre. He leaves the field, and they were still just good enough to stop enough of the Rabbitohs' attacks with Kurt Capewell at centre. And this is a beautiful thing about the Warriors roster that we've talked all season about. What happens if there's an injury at centre? Well, Kurt Capewell just plays centre. And he does a really good job. But to do that, you need Marata Niukore to play equally as well as a middle forward and an edge forward. And you also need Leka Halasima to be equally as good at right edge and left edge. Because that happened against the Rabbitohs. And that happened, there was that shuffle on the right edge. So Halasima started on the right edge where he scored his try, then he finished at left edge because Capewell had to move to right centre. From left edge to right centre, that whole right edge for the Warriors, that is the feeding zone for the Rabbitohs on their left edge. So it could have been a lot worse, I reckon, coming up against Latrell Mitchell. Obviously, you got Alex Johnson on that side of the field. You don't have Cody Walker, but the Rabbitohs' left edge, they were able to score some tries with and without Berry, but not enough to get the win. And that's another tick for Kurt Capewell covering multiple positions mid-game. The other injury was to Mitchell Barnett. And this is a fascinating little glimpse into something we always talk about with the Warriors as far as the headliners and what the Warriors are actually doing. There's a fair amount of doom and gloom about Mitchell Barnett. Like after the game, I don't know whether this is the fact that Barnett plays Origin, does his Wednesday night shift at another job we don't really care about, but the Australian perspective is all about Barnett. Can he show up to work on the next Wednesday shift? And then, but you've also got the New Zealand media who's like, damaging blow to the Warriors with a major injury to Mitchell Barnett. And all the post-match wash-up is about Mitchell Barnett. And obviously we love Mitchell Barnett. But I'm not scared. I'm not scared now because I've seen the Warriors win multiple games, some of which were in Australia, without James Fisher-Harris. And I, being from New Zealand, think James Fisher-Harris is better than Mitchell Barnett. And the Warriors won without James Fisher-Harris. So that frames my perspective on this next period, which is the rest of the season, without Mitchell Barnett. And as Mitchell Barnett was, he was on the ground, became clear that he wasn't going to keep playing. So, okay, what happens next in this game for the Warriors? Well, Jackson Ford might just play the rest of the game because that's usually what happens. Because Jackson go forward is awesome. And we've come a long way since round 1. We are now here in another week where Jackson Ford is awesome. And what happened after the injury to Barnett? Jackson Ford came on the field and he played the next 59 minutes straight. And what did Jackson Ford do in those 59 minutes? He had 15 runs, which looks to me, yep, that is the most of all Warriors forwards. And he had 151 meters. First and foremost, 10 meters per run. And that is the norm for Jackson go forward. He is not known in my whare as Jackson go forward because he goes backwards. He goes forwards. Jackson Ford is averaging 10 meters per run with ease. That's 151 meters, and yep, that is the most of all Warriors forwards. Now, obviously, he also had 37 tackles, can't overlook that, and nor can we overlook his grubber to set up the try for Rocco Berry.
I wasn't going to let you overlook that. No way.
It was a crisp grubber, I will say that. Perfect end over end, accurate touch, precision. The skills that are basically the opposite of how Jackson Ford plays rugby league in the middle in the NRL. So I've seen the Warriors win without Fisher Harris, and I have been tracking too much for my own good because I got down in the dumps with Jackson Ford after round 1. And I'm sorry to Jackson go forward. But now I've seen it for almost the whole season where Jackson Ford always goes forward. He plays big minutes. He always shows up to cover the inside shoulders, to make tackles that other blokes don't want to make, and to take a tough carry. And he's there. So how did the Warriors deal with the loss of Mitchell Barnett against the Rabbitohs? Well, Jackson Ford stepped up, as he usually does. How are the Warriors going to deal with the loss of Mitchell Barnett this season? Well, Jackson Ford is going to step up. Aaron Clark is going to do what he keeps doing. Fisher Harris, he's going to keep doing what he does. And, okay, there's a spot on the bench. What happens then? Take your pick of any young Warriors forward or slightly older forward, Bunty Afoa, Tom Ale, Tanner Stowers-Smith, Jacob Laban. Because if Jacob Laban, he can roll through the middle, but he can also play on an edge to make Marata Niokore play through the middle. So that, swing back to the Berry thing, because I skipped over this. The Warriors have Kurt Capewell playing multiple positions at a high level. And this is the thing about Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. This is why Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is so good. He is awesome. Because he plays 8 out of 10, fullback, wing, center, maybe number 6. And that goes into these other little versatile pockets. Capewell can play 8 out of 10, center or edge forward. Niokore, 8 out of 10, edge forward, middle. Leka Halasima, 8 out of 10, right edge, left edge. Adam Pompey, 8 out of 10, wing, center. There are these type of players throughout the whole roster. What happened when Tamaire Martin came on the field? He played dummy half. Did a job. He had 2 dummy half runs for 20 meters. Same 10 meters per run mark as Wade Egan, who had 5 runs for 54 meters. So Tamaire Martin, what's he doing? Playing at a solid level, whether it's in the halves, fullback, dummy half, middle forward. The Warriors are flush with these type of versatile players who rip in no matter what position they are playing. Swing back to the Barnett loss. The game went up a notch for the Warriors when Demitric Vaimauga and Halasima entered the arena. So Jackson Ford comes off the bench to replace Barnett. He's just going to go about his work. And let me simmer on this for a second. Barnett's more ruthless. Barnett's probably a better passer. And I'd say Barnett's a better leader. Jackson Ford isn't like that far behind Mitchell Barnett with the way he's playing right now. Like, Mitchell Barnett doesn't have 15 runs for 150 meters that often. He might have 15 runs for 140 meters, 130 meters. So, like, we've seen it all season, very confident in Jackson Ford and his ability to step up, because he literally just did it against the Rabbitohs. But then you've got the Alyssa Whinham punch off the bench. And that reminded me that Alyssima's best role right now is off the bench. I've been brewing that for a couple of weeks, and it's just a different game when Alyssima's coming off the bench. Like, the first thing there is that he's fresh coming up against tired edge defenders. And the thing against the Rabbitohs, he came on with Vaimauga. And when Vaimauga came on, he was offloading. Vaimauga had 3 offloads, which was the most of any player in the game, and also the most in a game he's had this in his career. He had 1 offload in his 2 seasons combined. This season, he's got 7, 3 of which came in the game against the Rabbitohs. Alyssa will develop into an 80-minute edge forward. Right now, the best Warriors team has him coming off the bench, where he's fresh against tired defenders. And ideally, you get him the ball off an offload. So either you offload to Alyssa, which only amplifies him being fresh coming up against tired defenders. Just had an offload. Now they've got a re-up on Alyssa. Like, he's fast, powerful, strong, freaky. Or you offload and then you pass to Alyssa. And this is exactly what happened for his try. And this try was one of the key things for me that just summed up where the Warriors are at right now. A lot of the highlights you see, though, don't have Vaimauga starting the motion. And I'm going to pull up the GIF, the GIF, the BIF, the GIF. Because I made a GIF of Vaimauga's run. The Warriors are rolling downfield. Egan out of dummy half goes left, passes back to Vaimauga on the right. So that's Wade Egan. We'll get into Egan in a jiffy, because shout out to Charnze Nicoll-Klokstad and Wade Egan, the barometers. Vaimauga gets the ball from Egan. He does a step, right foot step, fend, bump, roll, offload. That's what starts the whole motion. In fact, Wade Egan starts it, but that's Vaimauga. And we've been saying it all season. Yes, Alyssima's the headliner. He's the highlight reel. Aliatawa, Demitric Vaimauga, Jacob Laban, Tanistella Smith, all these dudes are very good at rugby league. And Vaimauga started that. Well, he's the second player involved there with a big run, right foot step, fend, little bump, forward roll, offload off his knees. He offloads to Wade Egan. Wade Egan passes to Charnze Nicoll-Klokstad, who offloads back to Egan. Egan straight away passes to Alyssa. And I would add in this play, Alyssima's playing right edge, which means the Warriors have a middle forward trio of Niokore, Vaimauga, Jackson forward. Early in the second half, no Mitchell Barnett, no James Fisher-Harris. They're not on the field. But Vaimauga starts the play. Alyssa ends the play. Who touches the ball in this play, continuing on that theme? There's no Barnett. There's no Fisher-Harris. Harris-Tavita doesn't touch the ball. Luke Metcalf doesn't touch the ball. It's Egan, Vaimauga, Egan, Nicoll-Klokstad, Egan, Alyssa. So the Warriors scored this completely razzle-dazzle, flashing potential, flashing their talents, their skills, their power, crazy try. Neither half touches the ball, and their 2 best middle forwards aren't even on the field. That is the stuff that is happening for the Warriors, along with the versatility that I think is overlooked when you're just like, oh, yeah, Metcalf moments, and he had his moment against the Rabbitohs with his try from dummy half, which it wasn't credited as a dummy half run yesterday, and it still isn't. So I don't know what constitutes a dummy half run when Luke Metcalf picks the ball up from dummy half, runs 85 meters to score, and it's not registered as a dummy half run. Metcalf had his moments. Hold that thought. Metcalf had his moments as usual. But all the buzz around Luke Metcalf, there's so much else happening. All the doom and gloom about Mitchell Barnett, there's so much more happening. And it's on display every single week for the Warriors. So let's say every second game the Dragons, that's what it feels like for the Warriors, every second game the Dragons, one of their centers leaves the game injured. What is your solution?
Roll up in the fetal position and cry. I'm not sure. Valentine Holmes had to play 2 games in like 4 days, 3 days, something like that, in order to not have to worry about that. So there might be a difference in depth between those two teams.
It's not depth; it's versatility.
That because too.
I'm not saying for sure, because I'm sure if we thought about it for 10 minutes, we'd come up with solutions. Someone would move to center, whatever. But you don't have 2 players that you can list right now who can move from their favored position to do a job in a second position without much decrease in level of performance. The Warriors have that in every single positional bracket. And I'm just repeating myself at this stage. The thing in the halves is that we've still got this beautiful balance. So Luke Metcalf moments. I think he's still leading the Warriors for tries. 8 tries this season. Harris Tavita's only got 3 tries, but he's got 10 try assists. We just continue with this halves balance. Luke Metcalf, because again, do you see any headlines about Chanel Harris-Tavita? No, all the headlines about Luke Metcalf, but his halves partner is leading the Warriors for try assists. And Metcalf's getting all the headlines because of the tries he scores. That's important. But, the halves setting up tries for others is also really important. So shout out to that halves balance. And you've got again, the Rabbitohs game, the Warriors went at their best, but they have that long game set up. And I still think the left and right foot kickers are massive in playing the long game. And you're starting to see the set for set, ball and play, long game strategy of the Warriors just form now that we've had a bunch of games to look at. But it wasn't necessarily evident against the Rabbitohs. The opposite was evident against the Rabbitohs. Lots of penalties, more errors and penalties than usual. So instead of the set for set grind, keeping the ball in play, the Warriors, they couldn't do that because of the stop-start nature of the game. And also, a lot of the Rabbitohs tries came from the Warriors inviting them into their territory with an error, conceding a penalty. So then you're giving Latrell Mitchell an opportunity in your end to start the set of 6. And that's not a good recipe for controlling the game. But the Warriors went at their best. So they struggled to control the game and do what they want to do, which is set for set. But they were still able to win. And that's where I think I'm settling on this Warriors winning by any means. We've seen it like Broncos, Knights, Cowboys, Dragons, Dolphins, lose to the Raiders, win against the Rabbitohs. None of those games were Warriors at their best. And that by that, I mean Warriors doing what they want to do to control the game for 70 to 80 minutes. They didn't really do that in those wins, but they were able to win. One key factor in that set-for-set grind, and I did actually have to turn off the commentary. Like, the commentary was a bit crazy. And I actually turned on some BFM and listened to music. So that was good time. Because but some of these games, it's like the Australian commentators, they're all in depth against the about the other team, the Rabbitohs. They know all the key points. They've got their observations to make. They know the good, the bad. They've got the coaching stories. It's all there. And then they've been given a brochure about the Warriors. They've been given a brochure about the Warriors, a leaflet, a pamphlet from 10 years ago. And they just say the most basic shit you can say about the Warriors. And quite often, the Australian commentators pretend as if the Warriors aren't winning the game. Like, the Warriors haven't just smashed their opposition for 10 minutes and then the commentators say, well, the Rabbitohs are really on top here. Well, no, I've just seen the Warriors fold up the Rabbitohs time and time again with aggressive wrestling, but the Rabbitohs are on top. So, what is one of those sayings we hear often from the block? His favorite observation is when forwards don't get behind the play the ball, which is, I think that's kind of racist, like, because he often brings it up about the Warriors. And again, it's a brochure they're reading off from 10 years ago. So, okay, you got the Warriors, big forward pack, tired forwards, they're not getting behind to play the ball. Well, who's the dude who does it the most? Fisher Harris. Who's the fittest forward at the Warriors? It's probably Fisher Harris. Who's the guy who's won 4 premierships in a row doing this exact same thing? It's Fisher Harris. Why does he do that? Because he knows he doesn't need to take a run for the first 4 runs. Ideally, he doesn't need to take a run at all. Because the Warriors get to halfway, Fisher Harris has walked 20 meters. Sounds pretty smart to me. Save your energy. Let the boys bring the ball to you. You don't even need to take a run. And then you're there to lead the kick chase. And you do it again. First of all, that's a key observation when you're watching rugby league. Because who cares if your players are slow to get behind to play the ball? Every team does this. It's not like, oh, this team's got really good, their outside backs are so involved. No, every team, their outside backs start the set. This isn't a unique thing for one team. We've seen it for 5, 7, 10 years, 15, 20 years. The fullback, the winger, the center, they take the first few runs. That is nothing unique. That is nothing new. And if you've got really good runners, your middle forwards don't even need to take a run. They just use their energy for defense. And that tells me again about the keeping the ball in play, set for set, repeat long game cycles, because that's what Fisher Harris does best. In those moments, if you keep the ball in play, he'll make his tackles, and then he walks 20 meters, and he's starting another defensive set. That's the flow that Fisher Harris wants to get into, that the Warriors want to get into, but it's a flow that they haven't quite been able to achieve in recent weeks, but they're still winning. Then we get to Charnze Nicoll-Klokstad. I understand why people They want a Latrell Mitchell at fullback. They want a Reece Walsh at fullback. They might even want a Keanu Kinney at fullback. But Charnze Nicoll-Klokstad is just a different type of fullback that is very useful, very important for this Warriors team. Because he, like that set for set ball and play, well, what happens when you're trying to do that? You got this dude at fullback who's taken 28 runs for 339 meters. Latrell Mitchell isn't doing that at all. He's doing other stuff, but the Warriors need Nicoll-Klokstad. And like we've seen, like Nicoll-Klokstad has done this before. He's done it for New Zealand Kiwis with a broken rib. He's done it before for the Warriors. He's done it before for the Raiders. But he was quite lively in this game against the Rabbitohs. So it was a little bit extra. Scored a try, good footwork on the edge. Say it again. I don't know how he makes these meters. He doesn't look very big. Obviously, these dudes are massive muscularly, if that's a word. So yeah, Nicoll-Klokstad, his legs are bigger than our forearms, and that's great. Legs should be bigger than forearms. What am I saying? His calves are
His
bigger
forearms
than
are bigger than our legs. His calves are bigger than my thighs, yeah, probably.
I got some big legs. Nah, what am I saying? His calves are bigger than my thighs. And that is definitely the case for Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. But Nicoll-Klokstad is awesome. He's gonna take 2 runs every set. He's always attacking around the play of the ball, which is very important because that's where you can make a lot of meters, work over the middle defense. But his defense is the thing that I think is often overlooked. So his involvements with the footy, Reece Walsh doesn't take 28 runs into the defensive line. Latrell Mitchell doesn't take 28 runs into the defense. Those fullbacks are also not doing the defensive work of Nicoll-Klokstad. He saved 2 tries in the first quarter of the game. Try-saving tackle on Bentley Harpe, and then he held up someone, I think it was Ewan Aitken, got under him at the try line. Last week against the Raiders, I put this video in the preview to the Rabbitohs game. There was a play where he is in the defensive line 20 meters out, 30 meters out. And a very important thing about NRL Rugby League right now is how fast you are getting back to the defensive line. So it's one thing to be, yeah, he's mobile. He's fast. It's not it's sideways. It's going forward. But a very important thing about NRL defense is how quick you are from making the tackle to getting back to the defensive line. Because if you've got 2 markers and another dude who's a slow get back, he's out of the defense. So when that happened against the Raiders, Nicoll-Klokstad pushed into the defensive line just so it looked like there was a body there. But the defense is too slow to get back, so then Nicoll-Klokstad just takes on that role. So he pushes forward to make a tackle. The next play, he gets back to make sure a grubber goes out on the other side of the field in the in goal. So as fullback, he steps into the defensive line, pushes forward to make a tackle. Then the next play, he goes from marker 20 meters out on the right side of the field to ushering the ball dead on the left side of the field. That is Nicoll-Klokstad. We've seen him when he's on the try line. He's telling people where to go. He's dragging them. He's pulling them this way and that way. And he's doing all that while having the most runs, the most run meters, the most post-contact meters, and the most tackle breaks for his team. Yeah, he doesn't throw a cutout pass. Sure, he's not that fast. But he is a winning player, leading the effort and intensity and winning mana of this team. And there's a lot of things that I think are easily overlooked in the Warriors team and in their system, as we'll talk about in a jiffy. But there is no one player, there's no one thing that the Warriors are good at. They suit us because there's so much nitty-gritty going on. There's so many different things that are helping them win games right now that they aren't playing their best in. And I'm having a lot of fun getting deep into the mangroves, deep into these estuaries of Aotearoa and talking about it, writing about it, and just thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, when you listen to different types of fullbacks, the one that pops into my mind, because it's the one that everyone says, is the people who don't seem to want Nicoll-Klokstad fullback are the people who want Roger Tuivasa-Sheck fullback. But he's kind of the same. Like, he's also going to take 28 runs and get 300 meters. He's also going to make try-saving tackles. He's also very good at sweeping around behind to cover kicks and things like this. But he's also 8 out of 10, if not better, as a winger, and can score a couple tries and is a very good finisher and has a step at the line. And but he also, I mean, another similarity, he's not going to throw the cutout pass either. That's also not Tuivasa-Sheck's style of play. So it's a funny one there where that argument, and hopefully that has died down, because Nicoll-Klokstad was outstanding in that game, and it was, you know, one of the best showings in what has been a very good season for him. But also throughout Andrew Webster's time as coach, he's always backed Nicoll-Klokstad as fullback. He's clearly the type of fullback that he wants, because he's had opportunities to look in different directions. There was the Tuivasa-Sheck thing has been around for a little bit. The spell where Nicoll-Klokstad was required in the to play 5/8 for a bit last season, so Taine Taupike's getting games there. Like, there's been opportunities where they could have gone the other way. I mean, people want Taupiki back in the team now, by the sounds of it. It seems like he's carving up in reserve grade, but they're not talking about Nicoll-Klokstad now. It's getting him back in there on the wing, which it's an interesting one. Watene-Zelezniak did score a nice try, though, early in that game. He didn't seem to get very high up off the ground, but he got as high as he needed. Finished nicely, did what he needs to do.
Taine Taupiki averages more meters on the wing than Watene-Zelezniak, which is absolutely ridiculous.
He's half his size.
Watene-Zelezniak hasn't got over 100 meters in his last 3 games. And he started that game well against the Rabbitohs, catching the bombs, scored his try. He was doing his work, but he's the best Warriors team, for what I'm saying, like the set for set grind. You need Watene-Zelezniak because he's just a big body. He should be running hard. He should be making meters. He's not doing Nicoll-Klokstad, Tuivasa-Sheck 20 runs, 200 meters. But against the Rabbitohs, he had 12 runs for 88 meters. That needs to be.
Trying to do the math in my head there.
It's not 10 meters per run.
It's not even 8 meters per run.
That needs to be 12 runs for 100 meters. That needs to be 15 runs for 120 meters. If that's it, all good. But there's not a whole lot of difference right now between Watene-Zelezniak and Taine Taupiki on the wing, which is absolutely crazy. There's no way that should be the case, but it is. And I don't think Taine Taupiki should be a starting winger for the Warriors. He's a very important player in the system of the Warriors. The best Warriors team has Watene-Zelezniak on the wing, but he's just not playing at his best or at the level the Warriors need right now. And that's something I am watching out for.
Yeah, it feels like maybe it might just be a case of he missed most of the season, out for a bit of preseason on top of that. So he's just might need a month to get up into the swing of things. But it does feel like there's a little something missing there. But we'll see, because that was, his first game back was the game against the Dragons, and he was terrible in that game. Because I was cheering for the other team, watching. Yeah, kick it to that guy. He's just going to drop it. But he's probably got slowly but steadily. He's not aiming high, but maybe he's aiming low and far here. He's got a little bit better with each game, so perhaps he's on that trajectory. I don't know.
I agree, but let's just say I agree and keep it moving, because the Warriors in New South Wales Cup, they also had a win. Warriors in Jersey Flegg, they also had a win. That's 3 wins against the Rabbitohs last weekend, all in Sydney. So again, Warriors, top of the table, not top of the table, they're doing well in the NRL, honkadori. Yeah, but they're 11-1 in New South Wales Cup. And that's pretty damn impressive. Top 4 for the 3rd season in a row. I got 2 points I want to highlight about New South Wales Cup Warriors. If we're talking about wing, Warriors fans, you don't need to worry, because I think Dayon Amatuanai is going to step up as a NRL winger in the next season and a half, year and a half. He keeps doing some great stuff in New South Wales Cup. He's Te Aroha Jr. from Wellington, who also spent time, I think he might have gone to Hatoporua College, excuse the pronunciation. So he spent time at Whititira as well. Came through the Warriors system, left the Warriors system when they were with Redcliffe, joined the Panthers. Now he's in his 4th season of New South Wales Cup. First 3 with the Panthers during their dynasty. Now he's come back to the Warriors. And I think he's a better winger than Sio Kelly. Sio Kelly's a centre. But Dayon Amatuanai, I think he's going to add depth to the NRL roster very soon. And there's middle forwards ahead of Toby Crosby. Bunty Afoa, Tom Alley, Tanastawa Smith, Keilani going. Right there. And the versatility theme, right, that continues with Eddie Iramia Toiava, continues with Kalis Fatialofa. They play edge, centre, middle, whatever the coach needs. So that is already ingrained in the Warriors pipeline. But Toby Crosby, there's been a bit of a sorting period. So when Ale, Afoa, Stower Smith are available, Toby Crosby keeps his spot on the bench, but you've got guys like Jason Salalilo drop down to under 21s, Harry Durbin, Rodney Tuipolota-Vea, they drop down to under 21s. Toby Crosby stays there. And Toby Crosby right now, for a team that is 11-1, he is learning and doing the exact role he will have in the NRL. Sure, he will progress from this role to be a starting prop in New South Wales Cup. That will happen. But Toby Crosby is going to, his role when he gets to the NRL will be 20 minutes off the bench. And he is doing that every single week for a New South Wales Cup team that is 11-1. And I think that is going to prepare him very well for that role with the Warriors. And guess what? He's fast. He's powerful. I don't know about his passing game, because passing is very important for the Warriors as well as a middle forward. Demitric Vaimauga played in the midfield for first 15 at De La Salle College. What do you need to do there? Pass both directions. Toby Crosby, I think he was more of a number 8 at St. Patrick's Silverstream. But you still need to be able to pass in rugby union. These are skills that I think have held someone like Bunty Afoa back. He's not very fast, and it's fast and pass. Are you fast for a middle forward? Aaron Clark. Mitchell Barnett, Fisher Harris, they started out as edge forwards. So they're mobile, they're agile. Now they're middle forwards. Vaimonga's got those skills. Tanastawa Smith has been learning those skills in the Webster system. Keilani Going has those skills. That's why he's in the Warriors system, even if he is capped at New South Wales Cup. Afoa and Ale have been learning and developing those skills. I kind of feel like Toby Crosby has those skills in abundance, and he's got that education under Andrew Webster at the Warriors for the last 2 years, as well as being an absolute freakazoid. The Jersey Flegg team, they also defeated the Rabbitohs, and we had Jet Cleary and Jack Thompson in the halves together, so that's always a fun combination. Kahu Kappa, I made a clip of his try involvements. He's playing wing and edge forward. What more do you want with versatility? And Jason Salalilo dropped back down to under-21s after playing a New South Wales Cup for the last few weeks. Jacob Auloa, very impressive as well, and I'm still big on that. Makaya Tafua, who hasn't played New South Wales Cup or any footy for the last few weeks, and Jacob Auloa, hooker/middle forward role. One last thing I just want to add in, we'll try and add it in every week during the NRL season, just throw up a couple players I'm watching for and tracking in the in our representative realms. So the New Zealand Kiwis, I've been talking about it all season. Xavier Willison is someone I can see coming into the next squad. He's getting a lot of game time at edge forward for the Broncos, and the Broncos have plenty of bad vibes. So I'm not sure if that's his best role. I'd prefer him as a bench forward for the Kiwis, but we know the Kiwis have a lot of middle forward depth. So it gets a bit tricky trying to select a top 17, especially when you're welcoming back Nelson Asofa-Solomona, who is awesome. And he should be on the bench. As long as he's playing for the Melbourne Storm, he'll be on my Kiwis bench. And if you've got a Nelson Asofa-Solomona, Griffin Neem, you might have Leo Thompson or Nafahu White, depending who's starting, who's on the bench. But you got 3 guys right there. And you need a utility. So then Willison's on the, he's not in the top 17. And if he's not in the Kiwi squad, he's going to play for Cook Islands. So just curious to see how he develops over the rest of the season into possible Kiwis debut. I mentioned Asofa-Solomona. He was awesome last round. I think they had a big win over the Titans. And also Joe Chan got a bit of game time for the Storm. He was part of that New Zealand A game against Tonga a few years ago. That doesn't guarantee that they're going to play for New Zealand. But I think Joe Chan, I think he is the cousin of Jesse McLean. Casey McLean, sorry. And also Jesse McLean, because they're brothers, so he's cousins of them. And if Casey McLean turned down State of Origin and Australia to play for the Kiwis, I think his cousin Joe Chan might do a similar thing, and his father played for the Kiwis, Alex Chan, I think. But Joe Chan, he's from Sydney, spent a lot of time in France, then came to the Storm. And he's coming off the bench, edge forward, middle forward, very good, big body, mobile. Also curious about Taharoa with the Kiwis. Because you got Willison. I should have tied this into Willison, but you got Willison, he's from Taharoa. You've got Tanika Willison, who I think is Xavier's cousin. She is playing NRLW for the Knights. She didn't play for the Kiwi Ferns last year, but I think she's got Kiwi Ferns potential. Then you've got Tamaita Martin and Tain Tuaupiki. And the Tuaupiki Tamaita Martin combo, very good combination for the Kiwis to have as depth. If you are missing a couple of fullbacks, Tain Tuaupiki is very exciting. He'll do a job. If you do need a half or a utility, Tamaita Martin can do the job. Samoa, just recapping the last few weeks, we've got Connolly Lemuelu and Benaya Iowelu. They got the same Elu, but they also have the same Tangaroa College connection. Lemuelu's already played for Samoa. He left Auckland. He went from Tangaroa College, first 15, to Kibra Park High School, and then went to the Tigers before starting his NRL career. Aiwelu made his debut last week for the Roosters. And then we've got Ata Mariota and Simi Sasangi doing a good job with the Raiders. Mariota's a Manurewa Junior. Sasangi is an Ellerslie Junior. Where does Demitric Vaimauga fit in? He might play for Niue. He might play for Tonga. He might play for Samoa. He might play for the Kiwis. He's eligible for all of them. And he is someone who could play for... I think he's a international player by the end of the year. No idea who he's representing. And then, of course, Tonga, we've got Leka Halasima, Mangere East Junior, and Salisi Foketi, Manurewa Junior, who I've been talking a lot about in recent weeks as well. Let's go with a bit of football, where we'll start with the football Ferns. They have a game coming up in the next few days, but they've also lost the first 2 games against Venezuela.
First one game against Venezuela.
Okay, first one game against Venezuela. I did see in our newsletter, these are the type of things you can expect to find. Michael Jackson coaching the football Ferns. So shout out to him. I assume they were meaning Michael Maine, Gucci Mane, who is now the official,
I think so, yeah,
official full-time football Ferns coach. We'll just stick to this because these games are coming and going. So we'll probably talk a bit more of this football in the bonus podcast on Thursday as well. Is there one thing that you learned from that first up loss? I'm kind of pointing you in the direction of, okay, now we got Michael Jackson as the full-time coach. Was there something you saw in Michael Jackson's coaching performance in that loss, or a player, or just something like that where you're like, oh, okay, now I can note that down and move forward?
Yeah, not as many Michael Jackson dance moves as I was expecting from a Jacko coach team, but well, there might have been some from Venezuela, to be fair. I think that's certainly not something I learnt. It's something that we see quite often with the football Ferns, is we don't really have a particularly fast or athletic kind of team, and sometimes when we come up against teams who have that, doesn't always look amazing, particularly when the Ferns just a couple lapses defensively, not closing players down and things like that. All 3 of Venezuela's goals in that first game were superb finishes, but also like all 3 of them, you can do better at trying to get a body in front of that and either preventing the shot or blocking it, because the Ferns aren't fast, but they are physical, they are strong, they are committed, and those are the kind of those are the things you see from them when they play at their best. And I don't think they were at their best anywhere near that against Venezuela in this game. But also, if we've been fair about it, we'd also have to admit that didn't have Katie Bowen, didn't have CJ Bott. Rebecca Stott only played off the bench. Didn't have Macy Fraser, a crucial attacking player for them. Indy Riley wasn't there. You might argue Annalete would be in full form. Annalete would, she was at the Olympics ahead of Vic Hesson, but Vic Hesson's, that's not really a 1 and 2 situation. It's more of a first equal situation. So, not so drastic there, but I mean, that's at least 5 starters from their team that weren't available or weren't starting in this game. So, I don't know how much depth people think we have, but as far as the world-class stuff goes, it's not enough to cover half your starting 11. And others, maybe a little bit of rust in some cases where players were either, finished their seasons a couple weeks ago or maybe just haven't played a little bit recently. Not too bad, but, someone like I don't know, Annalie Longo with the Wellington Phoenix hadn't played a game for a solid month or something like that. So, little instances like that, but I think more than anything, the little lapses, the little sort of inefficiencies that were there more reflected a team that looked like they were thinking a lot about what they were trying to do rather than just kind of doing it as a first nature instinct. And I suspect I mean, I think it's pretty easy to guess that's because this is a new system they're trying to play under a new coach, and they're still just figuring some stuff out. They got some new combinations in there as well. So it's a bit of a slippery one. It was a disappointing defeat, partly just because it didn't feel like a game that they should have lost 3-1. But they also didn't really, like, Venezuela took some good chances. They whipped a few shots in the top corner, and we didn't have finishing to equal that. And we didn't really create a lot outside of a few good sort of high pressing stuff in the first half led to a few things, but including the goal that they did score, Katie Kitchen finishing that one off. But yeah, they look like a team that's still working in the very early stages of a new coach. No, Michael Main's basically been there for 12 months at this point, more than that as the interim coach, but it's really only that Costa Rica series where he started to actually change some things rather than just being a literal interim and doing what the other coach would have done with less controversy. Here we have a change in approach, and that's not going to happen overnight. So they do need to keep playing games. They need to keep playing these types of games that they're getting, like competitive games against teams like Costa Rica, Venezuela. Would have been Chinese Taipei if they'd been able to get some ones in there, but they butchered that tour by not playing them in New Zealand when they maybe could have, where they would have been guaranteed some decent pitches. But whatever. What we did see in the Costa Rica series, though, a few months ago, was they were a lot better in the second game, having had the first game. So I think with the game tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, I think we can hope for something along those lines as well. Get a few, maybe just things to click a little bit more than they did in the first one. In terms of couple individuals to mention, I would say I thought Grace Jale playing in an unfamiliar role as the left wing back, I thought did a really good job in the first half, subbed off at half time, which I didn't fully understand, but I also think maybe it's just a matter of trying a few different options with our first choice wing backs unavailable. You've got to give people a chance and see who's going to be that backup. And Jale's someone who maybe her spot in the team wasn't as obvious when they're not playing sort of three across the top. Saw her playing a bit in the midfield for the Wellington Phoenix towards the end of the season, so there might be some potential there. She can obviously play at striker, but now we also saw here that she can do a pretty good job at wingback. Thought she was good and aggressive and worked hard and that sort of stuff. And also, while it wasn't a great game in terms of, like, there weren't a lot of moments that went the way of Maya Han, she looks very comfortable in the midfield. I think that's having someone like her commit to the team adds a strong technical player in the middle, which we have had a lot of workhorses. We haven't had as many sort of technicians in there. So that's a very, very, very timely welcome addition. And hopefully we'll get to, it's not going to happen in this tour, but hopefully we'll get to see a whole lot over the next decade of her and Macy Fraser together at the same time. They're two pals that go way back to the under-17 World Cup and potentially beyond, trained a lot together with Ole Academy while Fraser was briefly affiliated there. So and also it was Fraser who set up Maya Han's winning goal in that Costa Rica game, second one of the series last time. So that's a combination to look forward to, especially when you can chuck in a lot more of Millie Clegg together as well. We've hardly seen Clegg and Fraser on the pitch for the Ferns together. Those three, there's a nice, especially with a lot of good sort of complementing players around them, there's a nice little creative triangle that could be forming there with Han, Fraser, and Clegg. It's just so far we haven't been able to get them all on a pitch together.
I think that's Clegg in the number 9 jersey behind you. We've got Maya Han as well in the number 26. So they will be playing together Wednesday morning against Venezuela. We also have All Whites starting their little series against Ivory Coast next Sunday, and then Ukraine the next Wednesday. So we'll be talking a lot to All Whites in our podcast next week. Any early preview points that you want to throw up?
Well, in the written preview, I looked a lot about how I wrote a lot about how this is sort of the start of very distinct start of the next phase for the All Whites, right? Like we've had this qualifying phase. Before that, we had the sort of just wider preparation, figuring out the squad. Then we had this spell where they pretty much knew what the bulk of their squad was going to be, and it was just about going out there and doing the business in the World Cup qualifying, making sure to book that ticket. But those were all very, very easily winnable games. Didn't really have too many hiccups in there, even though it took them a little while to get the first goal in the actual grand final there. They were never really under threat. That changes now where we start playing a lot more teams of the caliber that we're likely to face at the World Cup. So the All Whites have under Darren Baisley and frankly under Danny Hay before him, sort of since this kind of group of players has been together under those two coaches, pretty much impeccable record against teams ranked around them or below them. That's to be expected. An all right record against teams ranked sort of where I set it up in the piece, I figured 2018 World Cup. So okay, we'll go teams ranked 49 to roundabout. I think I just went to 100. Decent record against them. Some good results, some bad results, a lot of draws. It's all right. Like they're solid. You can see how they're building there. But a pretty terrible record against teams in the top 48. And those are the types of teams that we would face at a World Cup. Those are the types of teams we need to learn to get something more off. The one most recent game in that category was the best of them, which is when they drew with USA, I think it was September last year. Got a 1-1 draw there with Ben Waine charging down a clearance, scoring off his face. It was a great moment there for him. And a great moment for the All Whites because they defended really well in that game and deserved to get something out of it. But they haven't really had that level of consistency, and they've really struggled to score goals and create chances against better teams like that. So that's what we're looking at against Ivory Coast, against Ukraine, is how does that attack function? And the good thing about that is Chris Wood's coming off his best ever season. He just scored 20 goals in the Premier League. Callum McCallum has been on fire in Denmark. He just scored a goal to help Silkeborg qualify for the Europa Conference League, which means that he might end up playing against Chris Wood if that comes to pass. They'll be in qualifiers, and so will Joe Bell's Viking as well. And Bell himself, he's been adding a fair bit extra attacking punch to his bag this season. Eli Just has been scoring spectacular goals on the regular. Maybe not as many Sarpreet Singh moments as we'd like, largely because he is a bit in and out, particularly later in the season, I assume with injury, but it's hard to figure out the reports there. But his sort of goals and assists per minute ratio was pretty similar to Eli Just, so not as many spectacular highlights, but still fairly productive from Singh. And we always know he steps up more than almost anyone else. He steps up when he puts on the All Whites jersey, when he has a role that actually really suits him. Can't say much for Matt Garbutt, unfortunately, because he hasn't played a game in like 6 or 7 months. And Ben Waine as well, a little bit. He's certainly been a bit out of touch. But Costa Barbarousa's had a good season for the Wellington Phoenix. Like, there's a lot of these attacking players who are in very good form. So, let alone someone like, Livy Kikache's had his most productive attacking season, largely because he was played as an attacker for a bit of it. In Serie A, Francis de Vries whipping in all those assists for Auckland FC. He's not going to be starting ahead of Kikache, and Kikache's not going to be starting in an attacking role ahead of Just or McCall or Garbutt or anything like that, or Singh. But that is a good option to have. 15 minutes to go. Maybe then you slide Kikache up and you chuck on Francis de Vries and say, just whip the ball into the box. Chris Wood's there waiting for it. Let's see what you can do. There's a lot of players in this All White squad who are in pretty good attack and form, who have been putting up numbers as well, not just looking good, but actually getting goals and assists, like the legitimate stats out there. That's something to build off for sure. So it's been an Achilles heel for a long time for all New Zealand football teams, for the football Ferns, for the All Whites in particular. But Darren Baisley, he's got some he's got some decent ingredients to chuck into that stew. The veggies are fresh.
The veggies are certainly fresh in Aotearoa football, and we have New Zealand under 20s. They're playing 2 games against Chile, Thursday, then Sunday. I don't think we need to. We'll recap it in more depth.
Well, the one note to say about that is they did the draw for that tournament. and they chucked us in the same group as Chile. So we're going to play these games against Chile as a warm-up for the Under-20 World Cup later in the year in Chile. Like, it was an opportunity to go there. But now it also turns out we're playing against one of the opponents we'll have in the group stage, which sounds rough when you draw against the host, but also the hosts get given a top seed, right? That's how it goes, is they want the host to have a good draw, so they put them in the top seed. So often the host team is actually the worst of the first seeded teams you could get. And New Zealand was actually ranked in the second seed. We were a second seeded team at the Under-20 World Cup because we've had a decent record of sneaking through to the second round, and we always qualify. And a lot of it's a bit like fluctuating other countries in and out. Not everyone is going to every one of these tournaments. So because the seeding is based on past performances, we had a pretty decent seeding there. So we were the second seeded team, which means, unfortunately, there's third and fourth seeded teams. I think we got Japan and it might have been Ghana as the rest of the group. It's fairly tough, but I mean, it could have been worse if we'd been drawn up against like Spain or Brazil or something like that. I don't know if those teams are there or not, but so the draw worked out all right for them. And yeah, coincidentally, we got these two games against Chile coming up, which we're also going to be back in Chile playing against Chile when the actual tournament is on in a few more months' time.
Who is your most interesting player for this double whammy?
Let me check the squad so I don't miss someone out. Because when we spoke about it when the squad was named, I did mention Luke Brooks-Smith, largely because he's the youngest guy there, and there's the opportunity for him to play at the Under-17 and the Under-20 World Cup in the same year. But I already talked about that, so I don't want to mention him again. Well, mentioned Luke Brooks-Smith plenty. He deserves that much, but I won't put the full focus there. Well, I'm just... Yeah, right. I'm just realizing I missed a point in my domestic football roundup when I mentioned that Auckland FC didn't pick a bunch of their scholarship players. I'm realizing, well, the reason they didn't play in their Chatham Cup game, which they lost on penalties to Melbourne, was because they were away in the squad. Same reason the Phoenix guys didn't play. A bunch of them did, actually, last week. Got minutes for the Phoenix in the Central League, but didn't play the Chatham Cup game this week because obviously they're in Chile right now. They've got a game in a couple of days. So, who would I say is of note here? Stipe Jukic will be an interesting one. Auckland City, standout last season, doing amazing things as a 17-year-old. Went to Croatia. I was hoping he'd be playing first team football straight away. He wasn't. He was in the reserve stuff for under 21s or whatever it is. But he was getting regular stuff for them. So he's settling into a pro situation. There's one guy in there, Harry Kasky, who I'd never heard of before. He's a youth team player at Western United, but it sounds like he's fairly handy. And I do want to get a look at, because I haven't really seen him outside of the Under-17 World Cup, Noah Dupont, who's English born and raised. He's in West Bromwich Albion's academy team. He's actually just signed a big extension. I think it would have been a professional contract extension. So he's just re-upped with West Brom as well, and he's a very tall, very kind of strong central defender for them. And he was decent at the Under-17 World Cup 2 years ago, but also we kind of sucked at that Under-17 World Cup. It wasn't a very good one, but he's also he'd be one of the younger players, not as young as Luke Brooks-Smith, but he'd be one of the younger ones there. I'd like to get my scouting eyes on him and see what he's up to.
Speaking of your scouting eyes, Alyssa Whinham. Hat-trick in her first game for Sydney Olympic. And it's far more fun if we say hat-trick in her second game with Sydney Olympic as well. But according to you, the first goal was listed as an own goal. So an unofficial hat-trick. Wait. Back-to-back unofficial hat-tricks for Alyssa Whinham in her first games for Sydney Olympic. She is still part of the Wellington Phoenix women's roster. Wellington Phoenix women don't have a coach. Still noise about the drone lady getting the job, so that would be good. She's a high-quality coach. She also loves a bit of drone action, so that would be fun. Any insights about Alyssa Whinham and her mahi for Sydney Olympic, which is below the A-League? Like, that is kind of local Sydney, New South Wales footy. New South Wales Cup footy.
Yeah, basically, it's state league. So yes, that's pretty much exactly what it is. The New South Wales Cup version of yeah, it'd be like if that was played in the off season and I don't know, Demitric Vaimauga or someone was popping up and having a go at that, which would be fun if that happened. Yeah, Alyssa Whinham is still under contract with the Phoenix. Probably didn't have the season she would have hoped to last year. The year before that, she was kind of blocked out by Macy Fraser. Fraser leaves. You think, well, Whinham will step up and take over there. Maybe didn't quite have the year she would have hoped, largely because the team was quite inconsistent. But also, the thing was that was missing with her was she looks very good in the build up, but then the shooting is straight at the keeper or lacks power, or the through ball maybe just misses slightly, or um, just the opposite of what I was saying about a lot of the All Whites attacking guys at the moment is just the getting those actual goals and assists. I think Whinham had one goal and it might have been one assist this season, which is yeah. I mean, it's not harsh to say that's not good enough. For an attacking midfielder, you want a little bit more than that. Two assists actually, so fair enough. Just the assist tally just doubled in that moment. But if there's one thing she needed to work on before next season, it's can I score more goals? Can I create more goals? And she turns up for a Sydney Olympic team who played 10 games before she arrived, and they had not won any of them. And she scored a hat trick within 23 minutes of her debut. They won that game. She sort of scored a hat trick in the second game. I thought that second shot looked like that first goal looked like maybe it was on target, but it's hard to tell from the angle. Perhaps it wasn't, and it's just a deflection for an own goal. If not, I'm willing to count that as an assist. It seems like it should be. So, at the very least, she created that goal, and she also whether she gets the credit for it or not, which I don't think she has done, but she picked that ball up in midfield. She carried it forward. She fed it to a striker peeling wide, and she continued to run to get into space for a return ball. So she very much was the architect of that goal, whether it goes down in her name or not. And they won that game too. So they won 2 games in a row. I will mention, to be fair, not the only signing Sydney Olympic have made. They've actually brought in like 6 or 7 players. Not all of them, I don't think, have arrived yet. But there's a few. Like they've gone for they started terribly, and they very much tried to, now that the A-League season is fully completed, they're trying to bolster the stocks and get a little bit better. But one of the players they aimed for is Alyssa Whinham, and she's immediately come in and scored a bunch of goals. And that is, yeah, exactly what she needed to show ahead of the next Phoenix season. Get a bit of confidence, get used to seeing that ball fly into the net. She scored them in a variety of ways. There's her third one in the second game was just a brilliant bit of footwork to shake through 2 defenders and then whip it over the keeper. There was a penalty which she put in the top corner. A couple sort of just like smart finishes within the area. There's a lot of good stuff in there, a lot of impressive highlights, and it's gonna keep Bev Priestman happy if she's got the drone footage over those of those Sydney Olympic games.
This is official. She is the drone lady until she is officially announced as the Wellington Phoenix coach, and we will refer
Agreed.
to her as by her name. Until then, just the drone lady. Quickly, Auckland FC and Wellington Phoenix newsy updates. Seems like Moreno is leaving Auckland FC. And you also write in our newsletter that Louis Toomey, he might be on the outer. And did you like your opening paragraph here about the Wellington Phoenix roster? Over on this side, things are about as dire as they usually feel for the Wellingtons at this time of year. They always seem to need a squad rebuild, so this is standard procedure. To wrap it all up, our intrigue is far more focused on the Wellington Phoenix as far as building their squad over the summer. Auckland FC quite settled. You also threw up the idea that Max Mata might stay with Auckland FC because he was just there this season on loan. Moreno departs, so you could find a way to keep Max Mata there? Drop any insights about the Kiwi A-League teams and how they are building their squads?
Well, also Guillermo Mai apparently just got a massive payout from his previous club who didn't pay the bills on time, and he sued them, and then he's got like a repayment plus interest coming his way. So he's sorted. Don't think he'll be able to buy a mansion in Auckland yet, but he's on his way towards there. A couple more seasons at Auckland, perhaps. But I I'm not sure where to go with the Max Mata thing, because it's like they've lost Nato Moreno, and they could use that import spot to sign a number 9. Guillermo Mai says he plays his best football when he's got a target man in front of him to do that hard work, so he's got a bit of a freer role. We saw that pretty clearly. Like that's his best games were with Max Mata there. And Auckland's record, as I've harped on a lot about, was distinctly better when Mata was on the field. He was super important to them, but he only played a third of the minutes this season. And he had multiple injuries. He had a lot of, there were muscle injuries in there as well. And those are the sort of things where maybe that just comes right next season and he plays every game, or maybe it doesn't. And they have that import spot available. So I think they probably could re-sign him on loan. I don't know that Shrewsbury Town care enough about him to try reintegrate him after they've been relegated. I think they're just looking for clean breaks and stuff. But it is a possibility that they might decide, well, we've got to pinch the pennies here. Perhaps we give you another chance. But I think if Auckland really want that deal to go through, I think they probably can figure it out. It's just whether they want that, whether they maybe want to sign an import player who is either of a higher level than Mata or just at least a little bit more available. And to be honest, Max Mata once played in the Wellington Phoenix Academy. I think the Phoenix could do a whole lot worse than look towards Max Mata, whose brother still plays for Wellington Olympic in Wellington as well. They could do a lot worse than that if Mata's not wanted by Auckland. I sort of see that as a signing the Phoenix should really go after, particularly having lost Costa Barbarouses, give themselves a local All Whites level striker who's now got a bit more of a proven record in the A-League. Obviously nowhere near the proven record of Costa Barbarouses, but he is 10 years younger than him, which helps. I could see that happening too. So there's a little bit of curiosity there. The Phoenix are gonna need to sign some more local players, and I don't think it suits them to just do what they did last year and upgrade a few more youth players. They can keep those guys anyway. They don't need to give them full contracts, which is nice for them because they get paid a little bit more to play football. But I think their squad is better suited if they look for a few more Corbin Piper types, Luke Brooks-Smith types, where players from outside the system. They still got those guys in their system. They can hand out a few more scholarship contracts. They can play them as amateur players, perhaps even. Although it's a little bit rough when everyone else is getting paid except you to be part of the games. I don't know how the match payment stuff work, but yeah, they're gonna need to fill things out somewhere, and maybe they look towards a couple of Australian veterans because they've lost a lot of experience, a lot of A-League experience, particularly when you don't anymore have Costa Barbarouses or Michael Rojas or David Ball or Scott Wootton or whoever. Sam Sutton, even, frankly, he's a lot younger than those guys, but he also was a pretty solid, experienced first 11 player that's now departed. So there's a fair bit of work to do for the Phoenix. And I think they will need to look local outside of their academy to some extent, at least for one or two players. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of guys they can lure there. As for Auckland, yeah, they're basically set though. Moreno's left, but that's probably a good thing. In fact, the biggest negative I'd say about Auckland's off-season work is that it's almost too settled. Like you don't actually have a lot of wiggle room to address anything that you look at the squad and say, well, we needed this, this, and this. It's like, well, you can only sign about 2 more players because you've got pretty much everyone else under contract. But I don't think anyone there is going to regress drastically or anything like that. I don't think. Well, we might see a little bit more of some of those younger guys as well. But yeah, unfortunately, Louis Toomey is the one guy where he's the one scholarship player who is like he's turned 23 or he's turning 23 before next season, something like that. Which means he's now too old to sign a scholarship contract. So if they're going to re-sign him, they're going to have to re-sign him on a full contract. And there is room in the roster to do that. And he did play a few games throughout the season. So perhaps it might be something that Steve Corica is like, yeah, no, I like that kid. I want to keep him around. But it would have to be on a full contract. So that's one where that obviously significantly lessens his chances of sticking through. But we'll see what we'll see what goes down. Yeah, not a lot to be done by Auckland, a lot to be done by Wellington, but frankly, that sort of just seems to mirror how their seasons went anyway. So, as we were.
According to don't know why I had issues saying that. BBC Sport, Shropshire, Shrewsbury assistant coach Richard O'Donnell gives an update on Max Mata and Roland Iduwu. The update is there's a clean slate for them. And the update continues from the assistant coach. We're now looking forward. We want to be really positive in how we approach it. We want to be a really positive work environment for them to come into, because that is what it is. They have to come in with that positive mindset and be prepared to take risks and embrace the challenges. That sounds to me more like a plea rather than, yeah, Max Mata's coming back and it's a clean slate. He can impress. Like if you're saying, so we got Premier League, Championship. Were they relegated from the Championship?
They were relegated from League One.
So it goes Championship, League One, League Two.
Fourth tier, yes.
And they were, wow. Like, why would Max Mata go there? Why? Like,
it's probably below the A-League at that stage. Like A-League is, there's obviously no like direct comparison to prove it, but I'd say A-League is probably lower Championship at best, but more likely settled in maybe upper half of League One. So a little bit worse than what Tyler Bindon was doing, a lot worse than what Tyler Bindon's going to be doing, but probably better than where Shrewsbury Town are now. I almost, that quote almost sounds a little bit foreboding, right? Like it's, you got a clean slate, but you have to do everything exactly how we want it to. You got a clean slate, but we're not going to make it easy for you. You have to do all of our work. Come in with the right attitude, put in the work, and blah blah blah. Like, I guess you always say things to some degree like that, but he doesn't need a clean slate at Auckland because he's already a settled player who was pretty influential for them last season. I don't see how that is a better situation than where he's at. But again, like it might depend a lot less on what Max Mata wants and a lot more on how Auckland want to use that last import spot that they have.
But if same thing goes for the Wellington Phoenix, because as you're saying, he might be a good option for the Wellington Phoenix. But would it then be like, then it's up to Shrewsbury to allow him out? Like, can Shrewsbury just say, no, you need to come back here no matter what you want, no matter where you want to play your football, regardless of what Auckland FC thinks, regardless of what other offers you might have, you need to get your ass back to Shrewsbury and help us out.
They could. If they really, I don't know if they'd have the motivation to do that. I don't think if they'd care enough to feel like they wanted to stick their feet down and really go for that. But they could technically, because he has one more year under contract with them. He's not a free agent. He would need to be another loan deal because the Phoenix aren't going to pay a transfer fee. Auckland FC might consider it. Think they might have done that for Nando Peinecker, although he was only a few months left in his contract. So if there was, it'd be a very small thing. Yeah, they might consider a fee, but the Phoenix absolutely would not. However, loan deals can be wrangled. They're complicated, especially when you're working across confederations, but they did it for Chico Heraldez, so they could do a loan deal for Max Mata, especially if they saw him as someone who could really help them. And I think he would. They've got some good crosses in that team. And Costa Barbarosas wasn't going to win those headers, so those crosses don't turn up. So I think he could signal a different style of play for the next, a little bit of an evolution in how they like to attack, which they didn't have last season. They didn't have a lot of variety to that at all. They had almost no variety. However, they did have a fairly big and pretty successful physical center forward in Oscar Zavada the year before that, but although he's mostly injured, particularly the year before that. So they, there's evidence to how someone like that would fit in. I'm curious. A lot of the talk with the Phoenix is obviously they want a local striker. Ben Wane's just been released by Plymouth Albion. But I'm pretty sure Ben Waine will want to stay over in England and have at least one more crack and see what he can find, or at least stay in wider Europe, where he'll certainly be able to get something going. Max Mata's already come back to the A-League once, so just I wonder. I'll float that one out there because I think whether it's feasible or not might be a different story, but I do think he would be a great fit for that Wellington Phoenix team, as he was for Auckland.
Let's finish with our weekly dose of cricket, and the T20 blast has started in England, which started all sorts of weird thoughts in my head, like the way they bury the T20 blast is pretty interesting because obviously they prefer the 100, or the England Cricket Board prefers the 100. So trying to, like, just seeing the buzz and the hype for the blast, it's very interesting to see how those two tournaments are packaged, even though they're both short form tournaments from one country. Be like if we had the Super Smash and then we had Cricket Max as well. It's like, what are we doing? Like, we could just make one thing as good as possible. But while I am not that interested in covering T20 leagues, I do want to try and just find a point that is relevant to the Blackcaps and something that I find the most interesting as we have this period where there's not a lot of cricket being played. And the one thing the spotlight I want to have this week is with Zak Foulkes, who he took a wicket in each of his first two blast games. And he's also in his second season of T20 blast cricket. So he played last year before playing for the Blackcaps. Last year, he took 8 wickets at an average of 23. Now he's got 2 wickets, average of 20. Zak Foulkes, his T20 international bowling average is 23.4. His T20 bowling average is 19.6. He is not just behind Jacob Duffy, like he is significantly behind Jacob Duffy for the best Blackcaps T20 international bowlers since October 1st, 2024. Jacob Duffy, 21 wickets at an average of 9.7. Zak Foulkes, 12 wickets at an average of 19.2, but they were the two best. And if we're building towards the T20 World Cup, which I think is early next year, I am very curious about Zak Foulkes and his standing as a possible first 11 bowler for the Blackcaps in T20 international cricket. And that's why I'm very interested to see how he goes in the T20 blast. And if we're getting into Blackcaps T20 matters, okay, who are the bowlers who are ahead of him? Matt Henry. Then we got someone like, I think Ben Sears is a very good T20 bowler. But I like Lockie Ferguson. Who knows what he's up to? If he wants to play, it's up to him. He'll have to go through the procedure to play for the Blackcaps. Would it be better served for the Blackcaps to have Zak Foulkes? Now, the thing that I'm talking around here is Zak Foulkes he's a mystery seamer. T20 cricket, it's all about the mystery spinner. Zak Foulkes is the funkiest bowler, seam, or spin in New Zealand right now. He's got the weirdest action, and I think he has the best variety coming from the weirdest action. And I think that's going to be very useful. So when I'm thinking, okay, is Zak Foulkes a better T20 option right now for New Zealand than Lockie Ferguson? Well, he doesn't bowl as fast as Lockie Ferguson, but he has X factor with his action and the variety of deliveries he can bowl. He is also far more reliable right now than Will O'Rourke. Will O'Rourke, formerly known as the Spray Can, now known as Wild War, he gets a bit crazy. And that's all right, I think. That actually helps him in Test cricket because there's the need to be economical is less relevant, and batters are less aggressive, and War can build into his line and his length. T20 cricket and ODI cricket, he might bowl a bad ball that's going for 6, then he bowls another bad ball that's going for 4. Whereas in Test cricket, those deliveries aren't being smashed to the boundary. And he is just simply less accurate, less consistent than Zak Foulkes, let alone a Matt Henry type of bowler. And I'm saying this is War's biggest fan. He smashes gloves, bowls 145 Ks, crazy movement, crazy skill set. But that is why I don't think he is as good at T20 bowling as he is Test bowling, but he's getting those opportunities. Like, he's getting an IPL opportunity. He's getting, I think he's bowling for Yorkshire in the T20 Blast because he's a trendier international cricketer. He's playing for the Blackcaps in Test cricket. It was at the Champions Trophy in the ODI format. But I think Zak Foulkes is a better T20 cricketer. And I kind of think Zak Foulkes is a better T20 cricketer / bowler than Nathan Smith. And I can't say he's better than Jacob Duffy because he's not. Just straight up and down. His stats aren't as good as Jacob Duffy's, so that's a little niggly point in my argument. Then you're getting into like a Ben Lister type lefty, good skill set. He could be in the mix. But I think Zak Foulkes, I have a high opinion of him as a T20 bowler right now. And I think over the next few months, T20 Blast, maybe a bit more cricket for New Zealand, the series, I don't know if it's T20s or ODIs in Africa against Zimbabwe and South Africa. I think he's going to do well there. He's someone to watch out for ahead of that T20 World Cup. And I think a lot of people, they may not know he's already in his second T20 Blast, having been one of the best Super Smash bowlers over the past 5 years, having been second to Jacob Duffy for Blackcaps T20I bowlers over the last 6 months. There's a pretty established record of Zak Foulkes being really good at T20 bowling. I think he's a Test cricketer, but the T20 spotlight is where we're at right now. And with that in mind, I went full crazy and I wanted to cook up a young New Zealand T20 team. Because the other player I think is similar to Zak Foulkes is Bevan Jacobs, where you just have it's that freaky kind of talent. Zak Foulkes is more of a mystery seamer. Bevan Jacobs, he's hitting sixes that others can't hit. Like, he has a unique talent. So I started to go down that line of thinking. I was like, there's a lot of... Well, you know my prerogative, you know my mission, my bias. Any chance I can to lay out a New Zealand sporting pocket that I think is quite obviously awesome, that others may not be talking about, which in cricket revolves around the idea, this guy, he's a contract rebel. They need him back in the team. He turned down a contract. Oh, hell, the Black Caps going to move forward, losing with all these legends. Well, they do well. Need I remind you, the last T20 World Cup, they were knocked out in pool play, lost to Afghanistan, lost to West Indies, with all those senior players who everyone loves. They specifically did not select the youngsters in that first 11 for the T20 World Cup. They specifically selected the senior players who everyone is scared about losing. And they lost. So here we are, and I'm saying my T20 team, I'm opening the batting with both Phillips brothers. Dale, Glenn. I just wanted that to happen, so I'm not sure if that's like an actual thing we can do, and I don't have it in any order. I've just got Phillips and Phillips.
That would be amazing. Imagine the running between the wicket too.
Oh, there's nothing better. Like
they'd be running sixes.
Then we got Matt Boyle, lefty, good hitter. He's batting 3. Mohamed Abbas, he's batting 4, another lefty. No, he's a righty, sorry. Bevan Jacobs batting 5. Then we're going Mitch Hay batting 6 as the wicketkeeper. Yeah, that's 6. Well, I might need an extra player. Then we've got Zak Foulkes, Nathan Smith, Ben Sears, and Will O'Rourke. Now, I just said Will O'Rourke.
In there.
Well, I just said Will O'Rourke sucks. So why is he in the team? Well, it's a young team, and he's still the best. He's best young seam, right? Ben Sears, best young seamer. Nathan Smith, fantastic all-rounder. Wait, so let me do my calculations here again. Phillips, Boyle, Abbas, Jacobs. That's my top 5. Then we got another 5. Mitch Hay, wicketkeeper. Zak Foulkes, Nathan Smith, Ben Sears, Will O'Rourke. Need one more player. We're going Addy Ashok. Easy. Okay. Wild War. Maybe he's too wild for T20 cricket. Maybe it's a bit more spinny, so we don't need Nathan Smith. We'll just put Dean Foxcroft in, who can literally do anything. He can bat up top, he can bat in the middle, he can bat lower order, as we saw in Bangladesh, bowl a bit of spin, very hearty team member. Now, not all those dudes are youngsters. There's Glenn Phillips, who is a younger cricketer. Dean Foxcroft's a younger cricketer as well, not in his early 20s. But, I mean, that's a team and a half. Let me list it in my full. Phillips, Boyle, Abbas, Jacobs, Hay, Foulkes, Smith, Ashok, Sears, O'Rourke. That is a fantastic T20 team, and to be honest, fantastic cricket team. Full stop. But if we are going outside the T20 bubble, then I'll try and get Reece Mario into the mix.
But Rachin Ravindra in there at some point, I just imagine. He might not make the T20 team with that quality of hitting in that top order, but certainly in a longer form one, I guess.
Then we're losing the Phillips thing,
exactly. We can't do that.
The Phillips thing has no. Well, there's a bit of logic because Dale Phillips is really good. But yes, Rachin Ravindra should be in that team as a young cricketer from New Zealand. But we don't have him, so it's all good.
Yeah, everyone knows him already.
Yeah,
it's nothing to prove.
If we're sticking with the younger theme, I'd go Dale Phillips, Rachin Ravindra, Matt Boyle, Abbas, Jacobs, Hay. Still just as good. Like there is no, you lose the Phillips double whammy, but Rachin Ravindra is all right at cricket.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. That's yeah. That's interesting to think about because it's not just the talent on show, it's also another one of the themes that we've another part of the prerogative is the specific skill sets that are on offer there, like that is a very T20 specialist type team, even though a lot of those guys, a couple of them have already played Test cricket, and most of them have the potential to play Test cricket down the line.
All of them.
But all of them pretty much, yeah. But the T20 versions of those players suits T20 cricket very nicely. Like you have power, but you also have bit of you got that speed between the wickets. There's a lot of good fielders in that crew as well. Variety of bowlers, but not just a variety of bowlers where it's like here are some seamers, here are some spinners. It's like here's a bouncy seamer. Here's two guys who bowl 145 Ks. Here's a guy who has a back of the hand slower ball. Here's someone who's in the middle of that of all of those options. Like there's a little bit of uniqueness to each of them, and that makes it sound like an ununique thing to say. They're all unique, yeah, but they're all unique in different ways, though. And that's a stacked lineup. Like, there's a stacked lineup of players who are emerging international cricketers for the most part.
Final thought for the podcast. There's one player there who I forgot about. Well, I forgot about a few players. Most notably, the best young cricketer in New Zealand right now, Ravindra. But there was one player who was like, wait, yeah, that dude, he's really good. That dude, as you said, he's going to play Test cricket for sure. But all the buzz is about him being a T20 cricketer. But all the buzz, where's the buzz? Because I kind of forgot about it. Which is a strange thing to say for the only player in that team, not including Ravindra, who's in the IPL. Which is Bevan Jacobs, who averages over 40 in first-class cricket. But my point here is that personally, because I'm a bit weird, bit goofy, bit avant-garde, the guy who has been pushed to the back of the stove, to the back burner, is the guy playing IPL. I just found that a weird, like something, it's just funny. I just found it funny. Like the guy who's got all the hype is the guy who Kiwi cricket fans might not be checking for right now. Because we had the New Zealand A stuff. So everyone in New Zealand A is more top of mind for me personally than anyone playing IPL. Zak Foulkes is more interesting to me right now in the T20 Blast than Bevan Jacobs in the IPL. Mainly because Jacobs isn't playing. But even then, I'm not checking for any IPL stuff. Because I don't care. But it was just a weird dynamic in my mind where the one dude who I'm like, yeah, shit, we still got that guy. We still got Bevan Jacobs waiting in the wings as an all-format monster. I did check for this, though. Apparently he's a seam bowler.
Didn't know that.
You got to check out some clips of him bowling seam. That dude's still there in the mix, right? But this goes back to last summer where Foulkes, Smith, Sears, War, Hay, Abbas, Mariu, Nick Kelly, all these new players came into the Blackcaps. Bevan Jacobs earned squad selection, but he didn't play. So you've got this fantastic cricketer who will play a lot of cricket for New Zealand, but he's the guy who's kind of back of mind. He's in the shadows, just lurking, lingering for his opportunity. It's a weird dynamic, fun dynamic, exciting dynamic.
And the measure of this conversation, really, when we're talking about the vastness of the prospects to where you can have someone who, in the previous era, should have been the guy everyone was looking at and pointing at because, well, he got an IPL contract before he'd even played for New Zealand. but such is the level of talent around him that we can just like leave that one on the back burner and say, well, there's this guy to get excited about. There's this guy to get excited about. There's this guy to get excited about. There's this guy and his brother to get excited about. We can we don't need to rush this thing with Bevan John Jacobs, because that's going to happen anyway. He's going to play for the Blackcaps at some point, probably this summer, and he's gonna hit some sixes, and people are going to get excited, and then that's the next phase of it, is when people see him do that, and like you have an innings like Muhammad Abbas had on debut, for example, in a limited overs game. He'll probably do that at some point, and people will be like, damn, look at this dude, look at this big hitter that we've got, look at this guy who can smash sixes 360 degrees. And then the next phase after that is when people realize he actually scores tons of runs in the long format as well, at a strike rate that's not just batting like a T20 player. That's a strike rate that's batting like a batsman who can, sure, hit a bad ball to the fence, but also grind his way through time too. So I look forward to seeing these different phases of BJ Jacobs' career unfold. We've already had the very weird first one. Now we enter the next phase, and then there's a couple more to follow.
Let me finish with this. Bevan Jacobs, first class batting average of 59.5.
Okay, that's enormous.
One day record of a 27 average, 103 strike rate. T20 record, 32.5 average, 148 strike rate. That dude's all right at cricket, but you did hit one of my pain points from last summer, and especially the Super Smash commentary, was how many ways can we say this dude's name? It's just like, bro, I just settled for Bevan Jacobs because they're listing it as BJ Jacobs, Bevan John Jacobs, BJJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's all over the place. Just
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is kind of funny though.
It is.
What is Reece Muddy's first class average? The opening batter that everyone's excited to see break into the test team at some point soon.
It is fallen to 54.4.
Right. So Bevan Jacobs has a higher first class average than Reece Muddy, who is pushing for test selection. So I think that's another educational factor there.
Yeah, but Bevan Jacobs has not hit a double century.
Yet. It's coming.
If Bevan Jacobs hits a double century in the Plunket Shield, he could hit one in the Ford Trophy because he'll go crazy. But there'll be a lot of sixes. Like if he's going double hundy, he's hitting 26s. Which, now that I've said it, seems unrealistic, but
it sounds like a world record, so yeah.
If anyone can do it, it is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And if there's one person we would like to see as the Wellington Phoenix women's coach, it is the drone lady. Big up to yourself. We appreciate your eyeballs and eardrums. Enjoy these winter months in Aotearoa as it's a bit lighter, a bit brighter than last weekend, or last weekend. We're out here doing our best as I use. So big up yourself, Bombadil, kia kaha, stay beautiful, church.